The Silent Millionaire, The Private Road to Real Wealth. Published by Inspire Nation Story. Introduction. True wealth makes the biggest impact when it's built quietly. In a world where people constantly feel the need to show off, post every move, and prove their success to others, the smartest builders take a completely different path. They don't feel pressured to broadcast every win. They don't look for approval after every small step forward. Instead, they stay focused on something much more powerful: steady, silent progress that grows little by little over time and eventually changes their entire life without needing attention from anyone. The Silent Millionaire is not just an idea. It's a mindset, a lifestyle, a level of discipline that separates people who only look successful from those who actually are. While most people chase attention, the silent builder chases freedom. Freedom over their time, freedom over their choices, freedom over their future. While others spend money upgrading appearances, the silent builder spends energy strengthening the foundation beneath their life. And while the world keeps watching the loudest people in the room, it's often the quiet ones who end up winning in the end. This audiobook is not about fast money, empty hype, or overnight success stories. It's about understanding the deeper side of wealth, the kind that is built slowly, protected carefully, and expanded without attracting unnecessary attention. It's about becoming the kind of person who no longer depends on validation to stay focused. Someone who understands that the most important growth usually happens far away from the spotlight. Throughout this audiobook, we'll explore the principles, habits, and mindset shifts needed to build wealth privately and intentionally. You'll learn how to think with more clarity, move with purpose, and create a life where money quietly works in the background while you focus on the things that truly matter. This is your invitation to step away from the noise and walk toward a path that feels calm, focused, and deeply powerful. A path where results speak for themselves. A path where your success is measured not by attention, but by transformation. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Stop announcing. Start building quietly. Every time you tell people about a goal, a small piece of the energy needed to achieve it disappears. In that moment, it feels like you're doing something meaningful. It feels like progress. You talk about saving more money, investing better, or creating something that actually matters. People react. Some encourage you, some admire the idea, and for a brief moment, you feel successful. But the truth is, nothing has been created yet. No wealth has been built. No structure exists. No real work has been completed. What you felt wasn't true progress. It was only the feeling of progress. The quiet millionaire understands this deeply. They know talking about plans is simple, but silently following through on those plans, that's where real strength lives. Instead of chasing approval, they guard their intentions carefully. They treat their goals like seeds buried beneath the soil. You don't keep digging up a seed every day just to prove it's growing. You water it, you protect it, and you trust the process. Wealth works the exact same way. The moment you stop announcing everything and start quietly accumulating, your entire life begins to change. There's another danger that comes from sharing too much too early. When you constantly speak about what you're planning to do, your mind starts confusing intention with accomplishment. Your brain rewards you with satisfaction before any real effort has been made. That's why so many people always seem busy, yet never truly move forward. They become addicted to talking about action instead of actually taking action. But the silent builder never falls into that trap. They don't care about looking productive. They focus on being productive. And something interesting happens when you begin moving in silence. Your concentration becomes sharper. Without constantly explaining yourself to other people, that energy starts turning inward. Your decisions become clearer. Your actions become more intentional. You stop performing for attention and start creating something real. That's where true accumulation begins. Not only money, but discipline, clarity, patience, and self-control. Silence also gives you protection. Not everyone needs access to what you're building. Some people doubt you. Some compare themselves to you. And others distract you without even realizing it. Even advice from good people can sometimes pull you away from your path. When your plans are exposed too early, they become fragile. But when you move quietly, you create space for your ideas to grow without interference. You allow yourself room to fail, adjust, learn, and improve without pressure from the outside world. That doesn't mean you completely isolate yourself or never share anything. It simply means you become more intentional about who you share with. You learn the difference between sharing for connection and sharing for validation. The Silent Millionaire speaks about results, not unfinished intentions. They allow their progress to speak only when it becomes real, not while it still exists only in their imagination. And even then, they remain humble, because they understand something most people never do. Wealth is not meant to be shown off. It is meant to be managed wisely. As you begin this journey, you'll feel tempted to announce your next move. That feeling is normal. You want support. You want encouragement. You want people to hold you accountable. But real accountability does not come from strangers. It comes from your own standards. It comes from doing what you promised yourself you would do, even when nobody is watching, especially when nobody is watching. Start small. Instead of telling everyone you're going to save money, quietly start saving. Instead of announcing a new business or income stream, quietly begin building it. Instead of constantly talking about investing, start learning and put even small amounts to work. Let your actions speak louder than your words. Let consistency replace promises. And over time, something powerful begins to happen. You start trusting yourself more, not because you talked about doing something, but because you actually followed through and did it. That self-trust becomes the foundation for everything else in your life. It strengthens your discipline. It sharpens your judgment. And most importantly, it creates momentum. The kind of momentum that doesn't need applause to keep going. Silence is not weakness. Silence is control. Silence is focus. Silence is strategy. The moment you stop announcing and begin quietly accumulating, you remove distractions, protect your energy, and align yourself with the habits that create real wealth. You stop becoming someone who only talks about success and slowly become someone who silently builds it. And one day, when the results finally become impossible to ignore, you won't need to explain anything at all. Your life will speak for itself. Chapter 2. Build your first invisible dollar. Wealth doesn't start the day you make a huge amount of money. It starts the moment you realize that every dollar you earn doesn't need to disappear the second it reaches your hands. That choice is quiet. Most people won't even notice it. But that small decision changes everything. Your first invisible dollar isn't important because of how much it is. It could be a tiny amount, something most people would completely overlook. But what that dollar stands for is incredibly powerful. It's the first moment you choose ownership instead of consumption, control instead of impulse, your future instead of temporary satisfaction. Most people live inside the same financial loop. Money comes in, bills, shopping, and expenses follow right behind it. And by the end, nothing is left. Because it happens to almost everyone, it feels normal. But that exact cycle is what keeps real wealth far away. The Silent Millionaire understands this early. They know wealth is not created by how much money you make. It's created by how much you protect, keep, and grow. And that entire process begins with one simple decision: to make just $1 invisible. An invisible dollar is money that leaves your spending world and enters your wealth world. It is no longer available for random purchases, emotional spending, or unnecessary lifestyle upgrades. Now it has a different job. That dollar becomes a worker. Its purpose is to build something larger than itself. And once a dollar is assigned that purpose, it should never be pulled back into ordinary spending again. That separation is what builds the foundation of wealth. In the beginning, this can feel uncomfortable. You may convince yourself that saving or investing small amounts won't really matter. The human mind naturally looks for huge changes, fast results, and instant rewards. But real wealth almost never begins with something dramatic. It begins quietly, almost invisibly, just like that very first dollar. What truly matters is not the amount, it's the behavior behind it. Because once the behavior becomes part of your life, the numbers eventually grow on their own over time. When you create your first invisible dollar, you're doing far more than simply saving money. You're changing your entire relationship with it. You stop becoming someone who only earns and spends. Instead, you become someone who directs money, controls it, and gives it a purpose. And that shift in identity is worth far more than the dollar itself. Because once your view of money changes, your actions begin to change too. And when those actions are repeated consistently, the results eventually grow beyond anything you first imagined. There's also a deep psychological strength that comes from quietly building something in the background. Even if nobody else can see it, you know it's there. That feeling creates stability. It gives you control. You stop depending completely on your next paycheck just to survive. Little by little, you begin creating a layer of security that keeps growing with time. That quiet confidence is one of the strongest traits of the silent millionaire. It isn't loud, it isn't flashy, but it is incredibly powerful. As time moves forward, every invisible dollar starts adding to the next one. Slowly, they begin forming a system, a structure that supports your life instead of draining it. And eventually, those dollars begin multiplying, not because of luck, but because they were finally given time to grow. This is where most people lose the opportunity. They never allow their money to stay still long enough to work for them. They pull it back into spending too quickly, before it ever gets the chance to expand. Patience becomes extremely important here. Your first invisible dollars may not create instant visible results. Your everyday life may not look much different at first, but underneath the surface, something meaningful is happening. You are building discipline. You are creating habits. And with every repetition, those habits become stronger. Just like any skill, it becomes easier with time. What once felt difficult starts feeling normal. It's also important to remember that invisible does not mean inactive. These dollars should be placed somewhere they can continue growing, through savings systems, investments, or opportunities that increase their value over time. The goal is not simply to hide money. The goal is to position it wisely, to place it in environments where it can quietly grow without needing constant attention. That's how wealth slowly begins building a life of its own. As you continue moving forward, avoid measuring your progress by outside appearances. The world celebrates visible success, expensive purchases, luxury lifestyles, constant upgrades, and public displays of wealth. But the silent millionaire measures success differently. They focus on what's being built behind the scenes. They pay attention to what is growing, not what is being shown, because they understand something most people never fully realize. True wealth is not about appearance. It's about accumulation. Your first invisible dollar is not just the beginning of a financial journey. It's the beginning of an entirely new mindset, a new way of thinking, a new way of acting, a new way of living. It marks the moment you stop moving inside the cycle and begin stepping outside of it. And once you take that step, no matter how small it may seem, you are no longer the same person you used to be. From that point forward, every additional invisible dollar makes your position stronger. It increases your control. It quietly builds your future, steadily, powerfully. And over time, what once looked small and invisible turns into something undeniable. Because in the end, wealth is never built during moments of visibility. It is built through thousands of quiet decisions, repeated consistently, long before anyone else notices. Chapter 3. Let go of the need to be seen. The desire to be noticed runs much deeper than most people think. It affects the way you spend money, the way you talk, and even the way you define success for yourself. Most of the time, it doesn't show up in obvious ways, but quietly, behind the scenes, it influences your decisions and slowly pulls you away from real progress. You buy certain things not because you truly need them, but because of what they say about you. You post updates not because they truly matter, but because they attract attention. And little by little, that desire turns into a habit. Then eventually, that habit becomes a wall standing between you and the life you actually want to create. The silent millionaire understands something most people never realize. The need to be seen is one of the most expensive habits anyone can carry. It drains your money, it steals your focus, and it pulls you away from your direction. Because once your choices start depending on how other people might perceive them, you stop making decisions based on what genuinely works. You stop building, and instead, you start performing. But performance, no matter how impressive it may look from the outside, never creates lasting wealth. Letting go of the need to be seen does not mean disappearing from the world. It simply means your identity is no longer attached to outside recognition. You stop measuring your growth by how many people notice it. Instead, you measure it by how much control you've gained over yourself, by how much discipline you've developed, and by how consistent your actions have become. It's a quiet shift, but it changes everything. Because the moment you stop chasing attention, you suddenly have more energy to focus on what truly matters. There's a certain kind of freedom that comes when you move through life without feeling watched all the time. You no longer feel the pressure to impress people. You stop comparing your journey to somebody else's timeline, and slowly, you begin operating at your own pace, guided by your own standards. That's where real growth begins. Not in public moments filled with visibility, but in the quiet, repeated effort nobody else gets to see. A lot of people are afraid of that kind of invisibility. They connect being unseen with being unimportant, but the silent millionaire sees it in a completely different way. To them, being unseen is not a weakness. It's an advantage. It gives you room to fail without being judged. It gives you the freedom to test things, make adjustments, and improve without pressure hanging over you. It protects your focus from distractions that don't matter. And most importantly, it keeps your attention locked onto the process instead of people's reactions. One of the biggest forces feeding the need to be seen is social comparison. When you constantly watch what everyone else is doing, it becomes very easy to feel like you're falling behind. You begin chasing goals that were never truly meant for you. You spend money trying to match lifestyles that don't even align with your future. And without realizing it, you move further away from building something real. The silent millionaire steps out of that cycle completely. They understand that comparison distorts reality. What people show publicly is often carefully selected, incomplete, and temporary. But what truly matters is what you're building in private, not what others are displaying in public. Another major shift happens when you learn to enjoy progress itself, instead of craving recognition for it. When your motivation comes from within, it becomes much more stable. It no longer depends on likes, comments, praise, or approval. Instead, it's fueled by a deeper understanding of what you're truly working toward. That kind of motivation is quieter, but it's also far more dependable. It keeps you moving forward even when nobody is watching, even when there's no instant reward waiting for you. And as you slowly release the need to be seen, you may feel uncomfortable at first. It can feel strange to stop sharing everything, to stop looking for reactions, to stop trying to prove yourself. But that discomfort is part of the transformation. That space is where a new identity begins to form. An identity that no longer depends on outside validation, but stands firmly on inner confidence. That doesn't mean you'll never share your success. It simply means that when you do, it will come from a place of wholeness instead of emptiness. You'll share because you genuinely want to, not because you need approval. And even then, your attention will stay focused on what you're continuing to build, not on what you've already done. Letting go of the need to be seen also strengthens your discipline in powerful ways, because when nobody is watching, your actions reveal who you truly are. There's no audience to impress, no expectations to perform for. It's only you and the standards you choose to live by. And in that space, you either follow through or you don't. That's where real self-respect is built, not during public moments, but through private consistency. Over time, this way of living starts to feel natural. You no longer feel the urge to announce everything, to show everything, to prove anything. You become more intentional, more focused, and more grounded. Your decisions stop being controlled by how they will appear to others. Instead, they become guided by how they will serve your future. And that clarity allows you to move with far more precision. The silent millionaire doesn't need attention to feel successful, because they already know what they're building is real, whether anyone notices it or not. They understand something important. Attention fades, but structure lasts. So they choose to invest their energy into things that endure. And when you truly release the need to be seen, you step into an entirely different way of living. A quieter way, a stronger way, a more controlled way. A life where your progress is no longer interrupted by the noise of the outside world. A life where your energy is fully directed toward building instead of performing. And inside that silence, you begin growing in ways that are not only more effective, but also far more meaningful. Because you are no longer chasing visibility. You are building something that no longer depends on it. Chapter 4. Redefining what being rich really means. Somewhere along the way, the true meaning of being rich got completely twisted. People started measuring wealth through appearances, expensive cars, oversized homes, luxury upgrades, and lifestyles designed to impress everyone watching from the outside. But looking wealthy is not the same as actually being wealthy. In many cases, it's the exact opposite. A lot of people who appear successful are secretly carrying heavy financial pressure, endless obligations, and constant stress that keeps them trapped in an endless cycle of earning and spending. What seems like success on the surface is often nothing more than a carefully maintained illusion. And if you truly want to build wealth quietly, the first thing you must do is redefine what being rich actually means to you. Because when your definition of wealth depends on what other people can see, your decisions will always be controlled by outside expectations. You'll spend money just to protect an image. You'll keep upgrading your lifestyle to match the people around you. And no matter how much you achieve, success will still feel incomplete. But the moment your definition begins to shift inward, your entire behavior starts to change. You stop asking yourself, how does this look? And instead, you begin asking, what does this build? Because real wealth is not about what you show people. It's about what you control. It's the ability to make choices without being cornered by financial pressure. It's having time that doesn't have to be completely exchanged for money. It's the freedom to walk away from situations, environments, or people that no longer serve your life. These things are not always visible from the outside, but they are deeply felt, and they hold far more value than any flashy symbol of success ever could. This is the kind of wealth the silent millionaire focuses on building. They care less about appearing successful and far more about becoming secure, stable, and independent. They understand that every financial decision either increases their freedom or slowly takes it away. Spending money for appearances may create a short moment of satisfaction, but many times it quietly steals long-term freedom. Meanwhile, investing consistently and quietly may not attract attention, but over time, it keeps expanding your options and increasing your control over life. And something powerful begins to happen when you start valuing control more than consumption. Your entire relationship with money changes. Money no longer feels like something that must be spent immediately. Instead, it becomes a tool that can be directed with intention and strategy. You begin thinking about long-term results instead of temporary pleasure, and this shift doesn't just improve your finances, it changes your overall sense of security and stability as well. It's also important to understand that real wealth often looks surprisingly simple. It doesn't constantly demand attention. It doesn't require endless upgrades. It's calm, steady, and sustainable. It doesn't depend on maintaining a perfect image for the world to admire. In fact, many quietly wealthy people intentionally choose lifestyles that seem modest from the outside. Not because they can't afford more, but because they understand the importance of keeping life efficient, focused, and free from unnecessary distractions. At first, this mindset can feel difficult to accept, especially in a world that constantly pushes visible success in your face. You may feel pressure to keep up with everyone else, to prove progress, to match the speed and lifestyle of the people around you. But this is exactly where clarity becomes critical. You have to decide what you are truly building toward. Are you chasing attention or freedom? Are you building appearances or control? Because trying to chase both at the same time usually creates conflict. But once you redefine what being rich truly means for you, that conflict starts to disappear. Your decisions begin aligning naturally. You no longer feel guilty for saving instead of spending. You stop feeling behind just because someone else is showing off more. You realize your path is different by design. You are building something that may not look impressive immediately, but is far more lasting and durable over time. Another major part of this transformation is learning how to appreciate progress that nobody else can see. Growing savings, increasing investments, reducing dependency. These things rarely attract public attention, but they are some of the strongest signs of real wealth. The Silent Millionaire tracks these things quietly. They measure success by what is growing behind the scenes, not by what is being displayed in public. And over time, this new definition of wealth begins shaping your identity. Stability over excitement, and long-term freedom over short-term recognition. This kind of identity is not fragile. It doesn't depend on praise, validation, or approval from others. It is built through understanding, discipline, and consistent action over time. You'll also begin noticing a deep sense of calm that comes with this way of living. When you stop trying to prove yourself to everyone, the pressure starts fading away. When your decisions are no longer driven by comparison, your thinking becomes clearer. You stop reacting emotionally to everything happening around you, and instead, you begin building life according to your own standards. That creates a level of control that is powerful, both financially and mentally. Redefining what being rich really means is not just about money. It's a complete shift in perspective. It changes how you live, how you think, and how you make decisions every single day. It pulls you away from constant chasing and moves you toward intentional building. It replaces noise with purpose, and it aligns your actions with the outcomes that truly matter in life. The Silent Millionaire doesn't need to look rich in order to feel successful, because they understand something most people never fully realize. Real wealth is not something you wear. It's something you build quietly, consistently, and with purpose. Chapter 5. Master the Art of Delayed Gratification. One of the strongest skills you can ever build is the ability to wait. And honestly, it's also one of the rarest skills people have today. The world around you is built to reward instant satisfaction. You can order something in seconds, stream entertainment instantly, upgrade your lifestyle overnight, and get a quick emotional high without ever having to wait. But the things that feel good right now often end up costing something much bigger later. The Silent Millionaire understands this better than most people. It's not that they avoid enjoyment. They simply understand that timing matters more than temporary desire. Delayed gratification doesn't mean denying yourself forever. It means being intentional about when you choose to enjoy something and why. It means understanding that every decision carries a consequence, and sometimes short-term pleasure either helps your future or quietly destroys it. Once you truly understand that, your behavior starts to shift. You stop reacting to every impulse. You pause. You think. And instead of making decisions based only on emotion, you start making decisions based on the future you actually want. In the beginning, this discipline feels uncomfortable. You start noticing how often the urge to spend shows up. You notice how quickly your mind creates excuses for unnecessary purchases. And you realize how easy it is to give in. That doesn't mean you're weak. It simply means you've been conditioned that way. Most people have been trained to satisfy desire immediately. Breaking that cycle takes awareness, and it takes repetition. Every single time you choose to wait instead of reacting instantly, you strengthen your self-control a little more. The Silent Millionaire sees every financial decision as leverage. Instead of asking, "Do I want this?" they ask, "What will this really cost me over time?" And that single question changes everything. Because the real cost of buying something isn't just the money leaving your account. It's the opportunity you lose. It's what that money could have turned into if it had been invested, saved, or used to build something that grows. Once you begin thinking this way, impulsive spending slowly loses its power over you. But delayed gratification goes even deeper than money. At its core, it's about building patience into your identity. It's about becoming the kind of person who's comfortable waiting. Someone who understands that meaningful results take time. And that patience starts spreading into every part of your life. You stop rushing progress. You stop demanding instant results. And because of that, you finally give things enough space to grow the right way. One of the biggest mindset shifts happens when you start finding satisfaction in discipline itself. Instead of feeling deprived because you delayed a purchase, you begin feeling powerful. You realize you're in control. You realize your impulses are no longer controlling you. And that feeling becomes rewarding on its own. It replaces the temporary excitement of spending with something far more stable: confidence. It's also important to remember that delayed gratification is not about being perfect. You won't always make the right choice. There will be moments when you give in, moments when immediate pleasure wins over long-term benefit. But what truly matters is consistency over time. The goal isn't to remove every impulse from your life. The goal is to reduce how often you act on those impulses. And over time, those small improvements create massive changes. The Silent Millionaire often follows a simple philosophy: earn now, enjoy later, but enjoy it more. They're willing to wait because they know waiting increases the value of the reward. A purchase feels different when it's made with intention. A lifestyle built through years of discipline feels completely different. Because true wealth isn't only about having more, it's about appreciating more. This kind of discipline also builds momentum. Every time you delay gratification, you create extra resources that can be used for growth. And little by little, those resources begin to stack up, quietly, consistently. Then, eventually, they start working for you. And as your foundation grows stronger, future decisions become easier. Because the more you build internally and financially, the less you feel the need to prove yourself through spending. Another powerful benefit of delayed gratification is clarity. When you give yourself time before making a decision, emotions settle down. Things become easier to see clearly. What once felt urgent suddenly doesn't feel that important anymore after a few days. And that's when you begin realizing something important. A lot of desires are temporary. They're emotional, not necessary. That awareness helps you separate what truly matters from what only feels exciting for a moment. Over time, this mindset becomes natural. You stop reacting instantly. You become more intentional, more thoughtful, more controlled. Your decisions are no longer driven by urgency. They're driven by purpose. And that shift allows you to build a life that's stable instead of fragile. The world will continue pushing speed, convenience, and instant gratification. But the silent millionaire moves differently. They understand that real wealth is not created during moments of indulgence. It's created during moments of restraint. They know that every time they choose the future over temporary pleasure, they strengthen their position little by little. Mastering delayed gratification is not about restriction. It's about alignment. It's about making sure the choices you make today support the life you want tomorrow. And when you do that consistently, you slowly build a life that no longer needs constant upgrades because the foundation itself is already strong. At the end of the day, the ability to wait is not a weakness. It's an advantage. It allows you to move with purpose, to build with clarity, and to grow with patience. And in a world where everyone is rushing, that quiet discipline becomes the very thing that sets you apart. Chapter 6. Build a life that looks simple, but quietly becomes wealthy and slowly growing stronger year after year. The silent millionaire understands something most people miss. The goal isn't to create a life that looks rich. The real goal is to build a life that actually becomes rich over time. And those two paths usually lead to completely different choices. A modest lifestyle is often misunderstood. It's not about living with less because you have no choice. And it's not about deprivation. It's about having control. It's about creating a lifestyle that supports your long-term growth instead of working against it. When your spending matches your real priorities, you create space in your life. Space to save, space to invest, space to think clearly, and space to make decisions without panic or pressure. That space becomes one of your biggest advantages. Most people increase their lifestyle the moment their income goes up. A bigger paycheck turns into a more expensive apartment, a newer car, more shopping, more subscriptions, more habits that slowly become permanent expenses. On the surface, it feels like success. Many upgrades create future obligations, future pressure, and future dependency. That's why they choose carefully. They focus only on the upgrades that truly improve their life, while avoiding the ones that simply create noise and distraction. Creating a modest life requires clarity. You have to know what genuinely matters to you and what doesn't. Without that clarity, it becomes easy to follow the crowd. People spend because everyone else is spending. People upgrade because it feels expected. But once your priorities become clear, your decisions become easier. You stop chasing things that add no real value to your life, and your attention starts moving toward the things that truly matter. That doesn't mean you remove comfort or enjoyment from your life. It simply means you become intentional about them. You choose quality instead of excess. You invest in things that genuinely make your life better, instead of things designed to impress people for a few moments. A modest life can still feel comfortable. It can still feel enjoyable. It can still feel fulfilling. The difference is that it's built with purpose instead of impulse. One of the greatest benefits of living modestly is the reduction of pressure. When your expenses stay under control, you're no longer forced to constantly earn more money just to survive your own lifestyle. You finally gain breathing room. You can make decisions based on opportunity instead of desperation. You can take smart, calculated risks. You can think further into the future instead of constantly reacting to the present. That kind of flexibility is a form of wealth by itself. There's also a deep psychological advantage to this way of living. When you stop trying to maintain an image, your stress begins to fade. You stop comparing yourself to everyone around you. You stop obsessing over appearances. Instead, your focus shifts toward function, stability, and long-term value. And that shift creates peace. Your mind becomes calmer because your actions are finally aligned with your real goals. At first, living modestly in a world obsessed with excess can feel strange. You may notice how different your choices are from the people around you. There may even be moments where you wonder if you're missing out on something. But as time passes and your financial foundation grows stronger, that uncertainty slowly disappears. You begin seeing the results of your discipline. You begin feeling the stability you've been building, and eventually, that quiet sense of security becomes far more satisfying than temporary attention or approval. The silent millionaire doesn't hate luxury. They simply postpone it and define it differently. To them, true luxury isn't just about what you can purchase. It's about what you can comfortably afford without depending on constant income every single month. It's the freedom to make choices without financial fear controlling every decision. Those forms of luxury are not always visible from the outside, but they are incredibly valuable. As your wealth continues growing quietly in the background, your life may still appear simple to others, but that simplicity is intentional. It protects your progress, it keeps your focus sharp, and it allows your money, investments, and resources to keep compounding without unnecessary interruption. Over time, that creates a foundation far stronger than any lifestyle built only for appearances. Designing a life that looks modest while quietly becoming wealthy is not about sacrifice. It's about strategy. It's understanding that what you keep matters far more than what you display. It's about building a lifestyle that supports your future instead of competing with it. And it's about trusting the power of slow, steady growth over time. Because consistent progress, even when it's quiet, eventually creates results that are both meaningful and lasting. At the end of the day, the goal isn't to look wealthy. The goal is to actually become wealthy, quietly, steadily, and without needing constant attention from the world around you. And a modest life, built with intention, remains one of the most powerful ways to reach that future. Chapter 7. Escape the trap of lifestyle inflation. Lifestyle inflation doesn't show up all at once. It creeps in quietly through small upgrades that seem completely reasonable in the moment. You start earning a little more, so naturally you start spending a little more too. Your standards slowly rise. Your routines begin to change. And before you even notice it, your new spending habits start to feel normal. Things that once felt like luxuries suddenly feel expected. And without realizing it, you end up running harder just to stay in the exact same place. That's the trap. It gives the appearance of progress while silently blocking real financial growth. Your income may increase, but your financial position barely changes in any meaningful way. You might feel more comfortable, but you're not actually more free. You're simply maintaining a more expensive version of the same cycle, earning, spending, and repeating it over and over again. The silent millionaire recognizes this pattern early and works intentionally to avoid it. They understand that making more money is an opportunity, not a signal to upgrade every part of their life. Instead of asking, "What can I buy now?" they ask, "What can I build now?" That single shift in thinking changes the way every raise, bonus, or increase in income gets used. Rather than instantly expanding their lifestyle, they expand their ability to accumulate wealth. One of the most important things to understand is the difference between meaningful improvement and unnecessary expansion. Not every upgrade is bad. Improving your living situation, buying tools that help you become more productive, or paying for experiences that genuinely improve your quality of life, those things can absolutely be valuable. But lifestyle inflation isn't about intentional improvement. It's about automatic expansion. It's spending more simply because you now have the ability to, without stopping to ask whether it truly adds value to your life. Escaping this trap requires awareness, and it requires intention. You have to become conscious of how your spending changes as your income grows. Because without awareness, lifestyle inflation happens naturally. It becomes the default direction. But once you recognize the pattern clearly, you can begin making different choices. You can decide which upgrades truly matter and which ones are completely unnecessary. You can separate real needs from emotional impulses. Another powerful strategy is creating distance between income growth and lifestyle changes. When your income increases, resist the urge to immediately upgrade your life. Give yourself time. Allow that extra money to build up. Save it. Invest it. Use it to strengthen your financial foundation. Over time, that gap creates momentum. Your wealth starts growing faster than your expenses, which is the exact opposite of what happens during lifestyle inflation. The silent millionaire often follows one simple principle: increase your assets before increasing your lifestyle. That approach makes sure every improvement in your life is backed by a stronger foundation. Instead of depending only on your paycheck, you begin creating systems that can generate income on their own. And once those systems are established, lifestyle upgrades become stable instead of fragile. There's also a psychological side to lifestyle inflation that most people never notice. As your environment improves, your perception changes too. What once felt completely enough may suddenly start feeling inadequate, not because your actual needs changed, but because your expectations did. The human mind adapts quickly to higher standards, and once it adapts, it naturally starts wanting even more. Understanding this pattern helps you stay grounded. It reminds you that true satisfaction doesn't come from endless upgrades. It comes from clarity and control. Comparison also plays a huge role in this cycle. When you constantly watch other people upgrading their lives, it creates pressure to do the same. You may start feeling like you're falling behind if you don't keep up, but this is exactly where the silent millionaire separates themselves from everyone else. They don't measure success using other people's standards. They stay focused on their own path because they understand that what truly matters is not how impressive their life looks from the outside, but how effectively it supports their long-term goals. Living below your means becomes even harder as your income rises. It takes discipline. It requires resisting social pressure, controlling emotional impulses, and ignoring the constant message that bigger and more expensive always means better. But that discipline creates freedom. It allows you to build a financial cushion. It allows you to invest consistently, and it helps you move forward without carrying the weight of unnecessary expenses. As time passes, the difference becomes obvious. While other people stay trapped maintaining increasingly expensive lifestyles, you're building something that keeps growing on its own. Your money slowly begins working for you. Your dependence on active income starts shrinking, and your options in life begin expanding. That is the real reward of escaping lifestyle inflation. Not just having more money, but having more control over your life. The silent millionaire doesn't reject enjoyment. They simply become intentional about it. They understand that every increase in income does not need to appear through visible upgrades. They value stability more than appearance, growth more than consumption, and long-term freedom more than temporary satisfaction. Escaping the trap of lifestyle inflation isn't about restriction. It's about direction. It's about deciding where your money should go before it quietly disappears into habits that don't truly serve you. It's about making sure your progress is genuine, not just something that looks impressive on the surface. Because in the end, wealth is not defined by how much money you make. It's defined by how much you keep and how much you grow. And once you learn how to control lifestyle inflation, you create a gap between those two numbers. A gap that continues widening over time until it becomes the foundation for everything you're building. Chapter 8. Choose simple decisions that create massive results. There's nothing flashy about the choices that build real wealth. They don't come with excitement or adrenaline. They don't create dramatic stories overnight. And most of the time, nobody even notices them. In fact, many of these decisions feel repetitive, predictable, and honestly, almost too simple to make a difference. But that's exactly why they work. The silent millionaire understands something most people miss. Real success is not built from rare moments of brilliance. It's built from steady, consistent decisions, repeated again and again over time. The world loves to celebrate big risks, sudden success stories, bold moves, and dramatic changes. Those stories grab attention. They're entertaining. People remember them because they sound exciting. But the truth is, those situations are rare. They're unpredictable. And most people misunderstand what actually created the result. What people rarely talk about is the quiet consistency behind lasting success. The small daily choices that seem insignificant by themselves, but become powerful when repeated over years. Simple decisions are not a sign of low ambition. They are a sign of clarity. They remove unnecessary complications and focus only on what consistently works. Saving a set portion of your income, investing regularly without trying to predict the perfect time, avoiding debt you don't truly need, living below your means instead of trying to impress people. None of these habits sound exciting, but they work, and their power grows stronger over time because they can actually be maintained. One reason many people avoid simple decisions is because they underestimate the power of repetition. Doing something once rarely changes your life, but doing the same thing consistently creates momentum. It creates structure. Over time, effort turns into habit. And once a habit becomes automatic, it takes far less energy to continue. This is how small actions slowly turn into massive results. The Silent Millionaire does not obsess over constant optimization. They focus on consistency. They understand that chasing the perfect strategy often creates hesitation and inconsistency. Instead of analyzing every little move forever, they choose a solid approach and stick with it. They trust the process. They give time a chance to work. And that patience separates them from people who constantly search for something better, but never stay committed long enough to see real results. There's also a certain peace that comes from making simple, repeatable choices. When your system is clear, you stop constantly second-guessing yourself. You stop wasting mental energy on unnecessary decisions. You already know what needs to be done, so you simply do it. That removes mental exhaustion and allows you to focus on execution instead of endless decision-making. Simple decisions also protect you from unnecessary risk. When you stop chasing excitement, you become less likely to make impulsive choices. You stop getting pulled around by trends, hype, and outside pressure. You stay grounded. You make decisions based on logic instead of emotion. And over time, that stability becomes one of your biggest strengths. It's important to understand that simple does not mean stagnant. Progress is still happening, even when it doesn't feel dramatic. Your savings continue growing. Your investments continue compounding. Your discipline keeps getting stronger. These changes may not feel exciting day to day, but they are building something solid. Something that doesn't depend on luck, timing, or temporary momentum. Something built on consistency. Another powerful thing about simple decisions is that almost anyone can apply them. You don't need special talent. You don't need perfect timing. You don't need secret knowledge. You only need commitment. That's what makes these habits reliable. Their success depends less on outside conditions and more on your willingness to stay consistent. Eventually, you'll begin to notice something changing inside you. What once felt boring starts feeling normal, and what once felt exciting, impulsive spending, risky choices, constant switching, begins to feel unnecessary. Your standards begin to shift. Your priorities become clearer. You start valuing stability more than stimulation. Progress becomes more important than novelty. The Silent Millionaire finds confidence in this simplicity. They don't care about impressing others with complicated strategies or dramatic moves. They care about results. And they understand that results come from repeatedly doing the right things, even when those things aren't exciting. There will be moments when you feel tempted to break the pattern, moments where you want to try something faster, something newer, something that promises instant results. That feeling is completely natural, but consistency almost always feels slow in the beginning. The rewards are not immediate. They take time to build, but once those results begin compounding, they grow in a way inconsistent effort never can. Making simple decisions requires trust. Trust in the process, trust in your discipline, and trust in the belief that small actions truly matter. It requires looking beyond the present moment and thinking long-term, understanding that what feels small today may become life-changing tomorrow. In the end, the difference between people who build wealth and people who continue struggling often comes down to one thing. One group is willing to repeat the same effective habits over and over again. The other group constantly searches for something new. One group builds slowly, quietly, and consistently. The other moves emotionally, unpredictably and under outside influence. The silent millionaire chooses the first path, not because it feels exciting, but because it works. They understand that wealth is not created through short bursts of intensity. It's created through years of consistency. And consistency is often built on decisions that may seem boring at first, but in reality, create the biggest victories of all. Chapter 9. Turn your income into a quiet machine. Income alone is not real wealth. It's only potential. It's the raw material life places in your hands. But what truly matters is how you use it. Most people spend all their energy trying to earn more money, believing a bigger income will automatically fix their financial struggles. But without a clear system, more income usually creates more spending, more stress, and even more dependence. The silent millionaire sees income differently. They understand that money needs structure. It needs direction. It needs to be transformed into something that keeps working long after the effort is finished. The goal is simple, yet incredibly powerful. Turn your income into a quiet machine, a system that runs silently in the background, steadily building and growing without needing your constant attention. This machine does not depend on motivation or emotional decisions. It runs on structure. It runs on discipline. It runs on automation. And once that system is in place, your entire relationship with money begins to change. The first step is learning to stop treating every dollar you earn as money available to spend. Not all income should reach your daily lifestyle. A portion of it should be redirected immediately, before you ever touch it. That is where the foundation of the machine begins. The moment you consistently separate part of your income for saving and investing, you create a steady flow into your wealth-building system. Automation becomes extremely important here. When financial decisions depend only on willpower, consistency disappears. 1 month you save money. The next month you spend it. 1 week you feel motivated to invest. The next week you stop. But automation removes that constant battle with yourself. The system keeps running, whether you feel inspired or not. And over time, that consistency is what creates real results. Think about it this way. Every time income enters your life, a portion of it quietly moves toward your future, automatically, without hesitation, without debate. Little by little, this creates a pattern. Then that pattern becomes a rhythm, and eventually that rhythm turns into a powerful force. It guarantees that no matter what is happening around you externally, you are still moving forward internally. The silent millionaire starts building this machine early, even when the numbers are small, because the strength of the system is not based on how much money you begin with. It's built on how consistently you continue feeding it. As your income increases, the machine grows right along with it. The percentages stay the same, but the actual amounts become larger. And because the system already exists, you don't need to constantly change your behavior every time your income changes. Direction also matters. It's not enough to simply save money. That money must be placed somewhere it can grow, whether through investments, structured savings, or income-producing assets. The goal is to make sure your money never sits idle. Your money should be working, expanding, contributing to your future. That is the moment income transforms from a temporary resource into a lasting force. Over time, the machine starts producing visible results. At first, those results may feel small. You may not notice dramatic changes in your everyday life, but underneath the surface, something important is happening. Momentum is building. And once momentum begins to grow, the results start accelerating. What once felt painfully slow begins to feel steady. What once felt insignificant begins to feel meaningful. One of the most powerful parts of this approach is that it reduces your dependence on constant effort. When income is your only path forward, your progress is permanently tied to your work. You must continue earning just to keep moving. But once your money starts working for you, everything changes. Now you have additional layers of growth that are no longer directly connected to your time. And that creates flexibility. The silent millionaire values that flexibility deeply because this is not only about having more money, it's about having more choices. The ability to make decisions without being completely controlled by the next paycheck. The ability to pause, to adjust, to explore new opportunities without immediate financial pressure weighing on you. That is what the quiet machine truly provides. Simplicity is also important. The system does not need to be complicated in order to work effectively. In fact, too much complexity usually destroys consistency. The goal is to create something easy to follow, easy to maintain, and difficult to interrupt. A system that naturally becomes part of your routine, instead of something you constantly struggle to manage. There will be moments when you feel tempted to interfere with the process. You may want to pause the system, change it, or redirect the money toward short-term desires. And while some flexibility is normal, protecting the core structure is extremely important, because every interruption slows momentum, and momentum is one of the most valuable forces in building long-term wealth. As the years pass, you begin to understand the real power of turning your income into a quiet machine. It works silently, without attention, without noise, without constant effort, but it never stops working. It keeps building. It keeps growing. It keeps moving forward. And that kind of consistency creates results that isolated bursts of effort rarely achieve. In the end, the real difference is not how much money you make. The real difference is how wisely you direct what you earn. Income is temporary, but systems last. And when you create a system that quietly operates in the background, you build a foundation that continues growing no matter what is happening on the surface. The Silent Millionaire does not depend on random motivation or occasional opportunities. They depend on structure, on consistency, on systems that quietly and powerfully operate over time. And once that machine is finally in place, everything else becomes easier. Because progress is no longer dependent only on effort. It becomes built directly into the way you live. Chapter 10. Become unrecognizable through consistency. Real transformation almost never happens in one dramatic moment. It is not some instant breakthrough, a life-changing event, or a sudden turning point where everything shifts overnight. The deepest changes happen quietly. They grow slowly through repeated actions that may seem small at first, but become incredibly powerful over time. The Silent Millionaire understands something most people miss. Becoming a new version of yourself is not about intensity. It is about consistency. At the start of this journey, the changes you make might feel too small to matter. Saving a little extra, spending a little less, thinking in a slightly different way. None of these actions grab attention. They do not create instant results, but little by little, they begin changing your habits. And over time, your habits begin changing you. That is how real transformation starts. Quietly, almost invisibly. Consistency is what gives those small actions their real power. Anyone can make one good decision. Anyone can feel motivated for a few days. But lasting change comes from repetition. It comes from doing the same disciplined things again and again, even when there is no immediate reward, even when progress feels slow, even when nobody is watching. The Silent Millionaire does not depend on motivation. They depend on structure. They create routines that support their goals. They build systems that guide their behavior. They shape environments that remove unnecessary friction. Because of that, they no longer waste energy constantly deciding what to do next. The path becomes clear, and their focus shifts toward following it consistently. As time passes, something powerful begins to happen. The actions that once felt difficult begin to feel natural. The discipline that once felt forced slowly becomes part of who you are. You stop needing to convince yourself to take action. You simply do it. That is where the real transformation happens. Not when your results change, but when your identity changes. Becoming unrecognizable is not about changing your appearance. It is about becoming internally aligned. It means becoming someone who thinks differently, acts differently, and makes decisions based on long-term clarity instead of short-term emotions. Other people may not notice this change right away, but deep inside, you feel it. There will be times when progress feels painfully slow, Moments where the distance between effort and results feels huge. And this is exactly where consistency matters the most, because during these moments, most people quit. They become impatient. They start searching for shortcuts. They abandon the process before it has enough time to work. But the silent millionaire keeps going. They understand that progress is not always visible immediately. Even when you cannot see it, it is still building beneath the surface. Consistency also creates trust in yourself. Every time you follow through on something you promised yourself, you strengthen that trust. You prove to yourself that your actions can be relied on, and over time, that self-trust becomes one of your greatest strengths. It builds confidence, not through words, but through proof. Another powerful part of this transformation is that it compounds over time, just like money does. Small improvements lead to bigger improvements. Simple habits grow into stronger discipline, and eventually, the difference between who you were and who you have become becomes impossible to ignore. The silent millionaire does not look for recognition during this transformation. They do not need people to notice the change, because the true reward is not being seen. The real reward is becoming. It is knowing you built something inside yourself that cannot easily be broken. As your identity evolves, your decisions begin reflecting that growth naturally. You start choosing what supports your long-term future, and you begin avoiding what does not. You become more intentional, more selective, more focused. This kind of alignment removes inner conflict. You are no longer forcing yourself to behave differently. You are simply acting in a way that matches the person you have become. There is also a quiet confidence that develops through consistency. It is not loud. It does not seek attention. It is calm, grounded, and resilient. It comes from knowing you can trust yourself, knowing your progress is real, knowing your direction is clear. This confidence does not depend on outside validation. It is built internally through repeated action over time. Becoming unrecognizable also means letting go of your old patterns, the habits, the thoughts, and the behaviors that once defined you slowly begin fading away. They are replaced with new ones that support your growth. And honestly, this part is not always easy. There will be moments of resistance, moments where old habits try pulling you backward. But consistency keeps you moving forward. It keeps you connected to the direction you truly want. Eventually, the results of this transformation become visible, not only in your finances, but in your mindset, your behavior, and the way you approach life as a whole. You become someone who moves with clarity, discipline, and control. Someone who builds quietly, moves intentionally, and continues growing consistently. And one day, when you look back, the change becomes undeniable. You are no longer the same person who first started this journey, not because of one giant moment, but because of thousands of small decisions repeated consistently over time. The silent millionaire does not chase transformation. They build it slowly, day by day, action by action. They understand that the strongest changes are never instant. They are gradual, steady, and lasting. In the end, becoming unrecognizable is not about turning into someone else. It is about becoming the version of yourself your consistent actions were shaping all along, quietly, patiently, and with purpose. Conclusion. When wealth is built the right way, it does not arrive loudly. It does not demand attention, and it does not need constant recognition to feel real. It grows quietly beneath the surface through decisions that most people never notice, but decisions that deeply matter to you. And by the time that wealth becomes visible, it is no longer fragile. It is structured, stable, and built to last. Throughout this journey, you have seen that the path of the silent millionaire is not created through shortcuts or overnight success. It is built through clarity, discipline, and patience. It starts with controlling your words and your actions, choosing action instead of announcements, learning how to move forward without needing to be seen. Then it continues through small, intentional steps, building your first invisible dollar, mastering delayed gratification, and designing a lifestyle that supports your future instead of fighting against it. You have learned that real progress often feels simple, even repetitive. The decisions that matter most are not always exciting, but they are consistent, turning your income into a quiet machine. Building assets that continue working without your constant involvement, and thinking in decades instead of days. That is what creates lasting change. And most importantly, you have learned that protecting what you build matters just as much as building it. But beyond every strategy, there is something even deeper connecting all of this together: identity. Because in the end, wealth is not only something you possess, it is something you become aligned with. It reflects the way you think, the way you act, and the decisions you make when nobody else is watching. The silent millionaire is not defined by what they display. They are defined by how they operate. This path will not always feel easy. There will be moments where distractions pull at you, moments where pressure makes you feel like you need to keep up with everyone else, moments where you feel tempted to rush the process or make your progress visible. But every time you choose discipline over impulse, patience over urgency, and structure over noise, you strengthen your position. You move farther away from the cycle and closer to control. And ultimately, that is what this entire journey is really about. Control. Control over your decisions, your time, your direction, and your future. Not in a restrictive way, but in a way that creates freedom. The freedom to choose, the freedom to adjust, the freedom to live without constant pressure weighing on you. It is the kind of freedom people may not notice immediately, but one you deeply feel over time. You do not need to prove anything to anyone in order to build this life. You do not need to announce your plans. You do not need to display your progress. The quiet work you do behind the scenes is enough. In fact, it is more than enough. Because what you are building is not meant for attention. It is meant for stability, growth, and long-term impact. As you continue forward, remember this. This is not a race. There is no reason to rush. The true strength of this path comes from consistency, from showing up every single day, from making choices that align with your future, and from trusting that even when progress feels slow, it is still happening. Because it is. One day, the results will become impossible to hide. Not because you tried to show them, but because they naturally speak for themselves. Your life will reflect the discipline you practiced, the patience you maintained, and the structure you built. And when that moment arrives, you will realize something important. You are no longer chasing wealth. You are living it. The silent millionaire does not need recognition in order to feel successful. They do not rely on noise to validate their growth. They understand that the strongest transformation happens quietly, over time, through consistent action. And now, that path belongs to you. Keep building. Keep moving in silence. Keep becoming. Because the life you are creating does not need to be loud to be extraordinary.